We continue our exploration of what is happiness. Yesterday, although we looked at various opinions on what is happiness, we remember Thay's teaching that in order for things to reveal themselves, we need to be ready to abandon our views about them. This is a recurring theme during this retreat. So where am I? Do I have all the conditions for happiness and I'm still not happy? Do I see reality, or am I seeing it through a veiled perception? Are you sure? Our view of ourselves and of the world and of our place in the world is mainly a deceptive perception. So, Sheer. That's nice. Sheer brought some teachings from Thay this morning on happiness, how to be happy, and I just wanted to share with you that this here, right now, I share more with how do we get rid of, how do we empty ourselves, how do we find the space in ourselves that allows happiness to enter, to exist. Because usually we're so full of knowing and being sure and views that there's no place for anything else to come in. And this morning we had this wonderful sutra, the 8 realizations of the great beings. And the first realization is the awareness that the world is impermanent. And that things are composed of elements. And that humans are composed of 5 aggregates and are without a separate self. Always in the process of change, constantly being born and constantly dying. So I thought to myself, what is happiness in relation to holding these teachings in our mind, in our heart? Would we see happiness differently? How would we relate to it? And it's very nice because I wanted to speak to you this morning a little bit about the 3 doors of liberation, which for me was very, very helpful in getting rid of some of the views about myself and others. And before this retreat, in my neighborhood, I asked people, random people, what is their opinion of happiness? What is happiness for them? My doctor, hairdresser, people sitting in the hairdressers, greengrocer, everybody who was unfortunate enough to come into my eye during that week. And I got many, many varied responses, but there were 2 main themes in the responses. One was finding a middle way, a balance, and not being free of guilt. They didn't say that, but this is being free of guilt that they were going in one way or another, going towards their work or their families. It was very interesting. And another one was being free of being pulled by wishes or being repelled by things that they were coming up against. So it was kind of a balance and freedom. Freedom came up quite a lot. It was I saw it that people saw freedom in their minds, freedom as a prerequisite, I think, almost for happiness. So these 3 doors of liberation, it's not that they worked for me immediately. Logically I thought that this is so, but it was in my mind. But over time, these teachings became embodied in me. And I was able to see that my ideas are not fixed. The ideas that people hold in the world are not fixed. And that we're constantly changing and coming together from all the components that comprise us. In this morning's sutra, they mentioned the 5 aggregates. In Sanskrit, they're called the 5 skandhas. And this really helped me very much. Skandha in Sanskrit, it means a bunch of twigs. It's like when people gather firewood and they have these sticks and they bundle them up, that's a skandha. So it's like the sukha and the dukkha. When you bring it back to the cart and the horse, or the cart and the wheel, this made such perfect sense. People are made up of their body and their feelings and their senses and their mind and their consciousness. And all of this together is what we see as our fixed person. So it was very helpful for me to be able to answer myself when I was questioning, which skandha in me is responding to a certain situation. It was helpful to see that I wasn't just one monolithic piece, and the moment I started to question it, then some spaciousness came in, and very often even the question wasn't important. The answer wasn't important, sorry. The question was important, yeah, not the answer. So we have this tendency to think that everything is fixed. For example, on the ground this morning, we talked about the stability of the earth. It is stable, but that's not the whole picture. So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the impermanent signlessness and namelessness before I get into that. I'm getting a bit carried away here. The impermanence is saying that really nothing lasts, everything changes, and we don't really see it happening unless somebody dies suddenly or leaves or unless there's something drastic. We really don't come to grips with the fact that things are changing all the time. And then Sangha last week, I think I was talking about impermanence, and I was talking about the fact that we buy something, we like it. Something. We hold it for years, for decades, and we really like it, and it looks the same as when we bought it. And after 20 years or so, you think one day, oh, somebody else should enjoy this. I'm going to give it away. And you look at it with fresh eyes, and you see that it is nothing like what you bought. and it would be embarrassing to offer it to anybody else because it's so worn and shabby. And we haven't seen it because we just haven't looked at it with fresh eyes. And the second door to liberation is signlessness. With these three doors of liberation, everybody will be attached to one of them, and they can choose one to work with if they wish. And it doesn't matter which one you take, because when you work with something, then the keys to the other becomes more available. It's just, it's the same with all of these teachings. So signlessness. I was, because of my fixed opinions and ideas about myself and the world, I thought this is something I have to work on. It wasn't just myself, I was reminded by other people that I needed to work on them as well. I mean, this is why we have a Sangha, friends on the way. So, I was just thinking about form. Then last night or the night before last, I wanted to make something to drink in the room. And they had lovely cups, beautiful cups, perfect. So I poured water into the cup. Very casually. When I walked away, and I came back, and the table was flooded with water. So I thought, oh, it was a bit dark. I missed the cup. I must have poured out some water on the table. So I filled the cup again. I cleaned up, filled the cup again, and I came back, and the same thing had happened. In fact, I moved it to another place. So I ended up cleaning the table, cleaning the floor, cleaning. It happened 3 times. The cup was new. It was perfect. I turned it over and I looked at it. There was no sign of a crack. Perfect. It looked unused. And I was not able to see what was happening in front of me. And then I put it in and I looked up at it and I saw little droplets coming all around. And I thought, I know the answer. This cup wasn't fired properly. It wasn't long enough in the kiln. I had an answer. And then afterwards I caught myself and I thought, I'm talking here about signlessness and opinions. And I already am falling into a trap that I'm telling others not to fall into. And I mean, afterwards I thought, oh, it could have been what do they call it? The clay wasn't correct. Something, there were many reasons. The elements that went together to form this cup were not as they should have been, or whatever. But the lesson for me was that I was looking at something, I was seeing it happen more than once, and I was still believed more in my idea of what it should be than what was actually happening in front of me. And this was at the retreat. And it's not just me that's caught by this. I came across a story some time ago. I'm interested in science because this was something I studied about 50 years ago, and I'm not working in it, but it's an interest of mine. And how we have a tendency to see things as separate, in competition, in conflict with one another, and how nature deals with conflicts, how animals deal with conflicts and harmony, and how we're so alike in many ways. But scientists also have a very, very specific and rigid ideas of what they think they should find. There's a lot of problems because instead of researching and seeing what is the result of something, people start off thinking they know the result of it, and then they bend the research to prove their views. This is happening more and more. But there was a paper presented by a woman, a biologist, in the 60s, Lynn Margulis. She was actually the wife at the time of Carl Sagan. This is how I got to her through him because I was interested in his work. She presented a paper which contradicted Darwin's theory. It was rejected 15 times over a period of 10 years. That the survival of the fittest was not totally correct. And she presented a theory of endosymbiosis, that life advanced not just by domination, but by symbiosis. And that is key parts of our cells that we have in us today, like mitochondria. They were once independent bacteria that merged with other cells instead of being destroyed by them. They didn't come into conflict. They came into symbiosis to survive. And it rewrote the way that we view the origin of life itself. So since the 70s, scientists are looking in a different direction. And they see that Earth self-regulates to maintain all the conditions for life. Sometimes it might be conflict, but sometimes it might be symbiosis. Now, the fact that it wasn't accepted may have something to do with the idea that it was presented by a woman and all of the people on the board were men, but we'll leave that for another day. I was just thinking this morning when we were standing there on the ground in the Veshe. We were walking around. And in fact, I bring it to the sound also, that the earth is revolving. We don't know it. The earth is revolving at 1,500 kilometers an hour. Depending on where we're standing. That's in the equator, and it's about 0 at the poles. And it doesn't matter where we're standing, we don't know we're doing that, and we don't even know that the earth itself is revolving around the sun at 100,000 kilometers an hour. So we're spinning and spinning and spinning, and we don't have any idea that this is happening. And I think that we can take these facts into every factor of our lives. Every factor, and every thought, and every sensation. So the Buddha, in his wisdom, when he said, where there is a sign, there is deception. Now we can prove that he is right, so he must be right. So a lot of our problems actually come from our desires to want things to be the way they are, or to want to be feeling safe with the ideas that we have. And we talked about the seeds in the consciousness, about the 51 seeds, having many seeds for desire, many seeds for joy, and many seeds for happiness. But there's also an element which in Buddhism is called manas, desire. Now, Thai calls this, he said his teacher called it a seed, but it's not always called a seed in Buddhism. A seed, and he called it the lover. The lover wants what it wants, when it wants it, and how it wants it. And it doesn't worry about the consequences. So, very often, we think we're going to be happy when we have a desire to get something, but it's a desire for pleasure, and it rarely brings happiness. So this is something that really we should be very aware of. And I want to. It's like when we're doing dharma sharing, and everybody, and you're listening, and you have this desire, it's like an impulse to speak, to answer, because you're connected, something has triggered you. This is the moment when you have to take a few deep breaths and think, this is not the time for that. I have to take a moment. It's kind of a trigger that we should be very aware of. It doesn't come from a well thought out decision. And we're here to, in a way, to acquire knowledge. I mean, I read these books to acquire knowledge. And we think that more knowledge is going to make us happier. But I found my greatest happiness, I must say, long-term happiness. I'm not talking about joy now. I think it was in Plum Village. The first time I went to Plum Village, I went because I saw a change in somebody in a very short period of time. And my first thought was, I want to be where that person was and to get what he got. That was my thought, to get what he got. And I won't go into the story because that could be a retreat in itself. Anyway, I got there, and remembering that we talked also about the power of energy and the power of silence. This was a silent place at the time. Most of the Plum Village were abroad. Thai wasn't there. And this silence and this gave such a feeling of safety, of being held, without words being said. When Thai came back, he gave his first Dharma talk. And the talk was about the Buddha giving speaking to his disciples on a hill, and this man came running by, saying, poor me, I'm the saddest man in the world, I've lost my cows. Yesterday the insects came and they ate all my crops, and today I lost my cows. And during this Dharma talk, I just felt a weight dropping off me, and I didn't know why. And I left that visit to Plum Village feeling about a ton lighter than when I arrived, without understanding why. And 3 months later I said, I have to go back and get more of what I got. And I came back for a longer period of time. And then realities hit me, and a lot of suffering came up. And I realized that I was helped to get rid of things and not to get something new. My first experience with Plum Village was allowing me, or gave me the space and the wisdom and the teachings to see that I was carrying a lot of things that I need not carry for my own happiness, for my own life, bichlal. So I think this is a lot happens like this in our lives. We want to get something, to be happier, not realizing that actually what we need to do is to release something to be happier. Anyway, I will finish in 2 minutes.
It's okay.
I got a bit carried away. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't, on the first page, and we'll have to have another retreat.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's unbelievable. But I just want to take a moment to say that we also, I wanted to talk about choices, and I don't think, maybe I'll speak about it tomorrow. It's only when we get rid of some of the things that we don't need and realize what is our desires and what is what we need, that we're able to make the little choices that we need to make every day in life, so that we're taking one step at a time. We're not making huge choices. We're not going to be able to change the government, change the world, change everything just because we want to do it. But all of these little choices that we make, in the end, they become the big choice. They lead us to where we want to go. So I wanted to ask you today to make this choice during the retreat, to ask ourselves, what makes me come alive? What makes me come alive? And I ask this not only for myself. It's not just selfishness on my part. But when I am alive, I'm more present for others. And I think that this is the biggest gift that we can give anybody, is our presence, our full presence, not full of who we think we are, who we think they are, what my ideas are, they're more right than his ideas. It's to be empty of ourselves, to be fully available, just to be spacious. Thai, I keep calling you Thai. Sheer talked this morning about spaciousness, opening up space. And when people feel it. And when we're like that, we may discover that, I think Joseph Campbell described it as the rapture of being fully alive. We don't have to chase after happiness. In fact, when we chase after it, it eludes us. But when we are fully alive, no matter what the conditions are, happiness creeps in. The funny thing about joy and happiness is very often it doesn't seem to have a direct cause. It's something that happens in response to the way we're living, the way we're thinking, the way we're accepting, and it comes in because there's space for it. And it happens in unexpected, unanticipated moments. So we have to be available for it. If we're not available, it will just, those moments will pass us by. And to trust in our bodies. I said to look at things with fresh eyes, but it's not just fresh eyes to the mind, it's just allowing any sensation that comes up to be felt in our body and to go there and to be with it. To abandon our views. I know that it's not easy, but it's a lifetime of work and I still have plenty. So there's meaning to my life, even at all ages. So I would like to close with some words from Dr. Thurman. He was an American African author, philosopher, theologian, civil rights leader. His words are very inspiring. They inspired also Martin Luther King. You sometimes hear his words coming through Martin Luther King. He says, I abandon all that I think I am, all that I hope to be, and that I believe I possess. I let go of the past. I withdraw my grasping hand from the future. And in the great silence of this moment, I alertly rest my soul. So, dear friends, the conditions are ideal. We can alertly rest our soul on the present, on being available, on just being. We don't have to do anything. It will come. Thank you very much. We have lunch now, I presume.